very unreliable if I'm being stopped out that many times.
Yeah.
So people have to choose between RR and win rate, and the system that we trade, the system that I teach, it essentially handles both of them. So if I'm trading on the 5-second, it's relative to the 5-second zone I chose. And commissions, from a CFD brokerage, from a future brokerage, from options, from whatever it is, it's never going to be an issue at all, because most of the brokerages that we do have access to, the commissions are very, very low.
Yeah.
Very low. The regulated brokers here in the U.S. for futures, even, some of the regulated brokers that are offshore, that are from other countries, I'm not even going to continue with that. If you actually executed trades, you would understand that the commissions do not catch up to you.
Yeah.
So people who quickly say that, it immediately points to the fact that there's a lack of experience trading there.
Yeah.
Because whether I'm on 500 times leverage or whether I'm on 5 leverage, executing the same trade with the same kind of spread behind the same zone that I'm using to trade from, and being at least a point in profit to cover the commissions or cover the spread or whatever it is, there's no, I can find the worst offshore broker right now and look at their spreads. You could still trade the system we trade on the lower time frames with their commissions and spread.
Yeah.
So it shows a lack of executing when people quickly jump out to say, "Oh, what about the commissions? We're not paying huge commissions." If I get $20 a point, you think about it. I'm on one mini. If I get $20 a point, and commissions is $4 round trip, so that's $2 to enter, $2 to exit. If that's $4, and then let's say it's like 17 cents for a couple of other things within the broker, for fees, standard fees, and it's a tick spread, so I automatically start out $5 in the negative.
Yeah.
That means that if I'm half of a point in profit at break even, it's covered. NASDAQ runs 20 to 40 points the minute it taps into whatever your POI is. It is a bull. It's running out of there. So to have this argument about how commissions and lower time frames is gonna do this with prop trading and do this with is just simply not. It's a non-existent argument. If you actually go to execute entries, like say you execute many entries, like say you execute it with a 70% win rate, you can execute with a 70% win rate, and you could still be ahead with the system we trade, still be ahead of the commissions. If you were taking, let's say 40 trades, which I don't think anybody should be taking 40 trades to begin with. I don't believe in a lot of trades. I only take about maybe 3 trades, sometimes 5 in a day. I don't take a lot of trades just because I'm on the lower time frames. It's just the lower time frames provide the smallest amount of risk while I'm taking this higher time frame opportunity. And the higher time frame just happens to be what other people say a lower time frame is. If price is fractal, then that means that there's no difference in time frame.
Do you feel like there is a big sense of like limiting beliefs that people have in the trading industry, in terms of like when they hear something a bit unconventional or something against what they think is possible, they just call it impossible. They call it not possible to do that, or it doesn't make sense.
Oh man, I mean.
The weird thing is, like, when yours on the lower time frame scale, right?
Yeah.
But equally, someone would probably sit there and say the same about someone trading the monthly time frame and say, nah, the swaps and the this and that.
And they could say that, but it all comes from the ignorance they have to being on the other side that they're on. That guy might talk about swaps, but the other guy up there on the monthly might show you a P&L statement that's worth just doing the monthly time frame,
Yeah.
and not have to do anything for the rest of the year. You never know that can be how someone trades on the monthly. So you
Mhm.
can't really call out what may not. It may affect you with the account you have having to trade the lower time frames. But that's what wealth looks like trading the higher time frames. We eventually want to get there, but the fastest way to be able to get to the higher time frames is through the lower time frames.
Mhm.
It's scalping. The fastest way to wealth is scalping. The fastest way to change your situation to whatever it is that you want to do within the markets, it will be scalping. It offers many opportunities for you. Let's say one trade would have been 200 in a day. Those 5 trades that you now can take ends up being 1,000 in a day, ends up giving you 2 days off at the end of the month. Now you have a week off at the following, in the following month. Now you have a couple savings up to where you can take time off and actually learn this. You got to scale your learning, but you also scale your trading as well. And that scaling, unfortunately, is only going to come through the lower time frames. Unless you have a large amount that you can risk, then that's different. If you're trading from a 100K account, which most people are not doing, then that's different. The 1%, 2%, those things you understand. Needing to take one trade that could end up being a 3-hour trade that was risking 1% and getting 3%, that could have been something that could have gave you the rest of the month off. And now you just show up next month to take another trade.
Yeah.
It's just all relative to whatever the situations are. And people take whatever belief they have and try to use it as something to attack another person.
Yeah.
Alienate them. Oh, they're doing this. They're doing that. Look at them. Could you believe? So, interesting enough, and it's good that you brought this topic up. This is pretty much what a lot of social media is today, especially Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter. It's now X.
I always forget.
This is how it is. This is the behavior that you see on there. People with limiting beliefs that cannot accept a difference in someone else's beliefs that still allows them to make money. And pocket watching and whether somebody actually does make money or not shouldn't be on anybody's agenda or schedule during the day either. I wasn't on social media until a year after I became profitable. So some people may have to get off of social media so they can actually just learn about price and consume everything they need to actually learn about the charts, and then become profitable, and then come back and do all your talking. But a lot of that is just distractions. Your brain is competing to retain all of this information that you're learning, but now it's competing with the fight that you watched on Saturday. Now it's competing with the prayer session that you had to sit through on Tuesday. Now it's competing with, there's all these different things that you're doing that your brain is holding, and if you don't prioritize how you spend your time, your brain is not going to be able to successfully retain the information you're learning to execute on live charts, unfortunately. And that's the way it is for a lot of people. So when they're struggling with these things that they need to shift and change as traders, some of them either go the route where they go into the cocoon and try to fix themselves, and other people go to Twitter and then they try to tell you, oh, you're wrong because this and that. You're not trading this. Can you believe that this person is using trend lines? Can you believe they're using support and resistance? While behind the scenes, they're getting cooked. And they come to Twitter or they come to X just to be mad about it. And they use whatever it is that they know and try to belittle and make inferior other people, who are out there and might have had a good week or whatever it is. So there's a lot of limiting beliefs that's in this industry that's making it a very, very toxic one. But I think that that's also in every single industry out there. So, we can't overemphasize it. We
Yeah.
have to understand that this is going to be everywhere we go, and since this is the place that we choose to learn, we're going to have to find ways to navigate that to
Yeah.
get where we need to go. That's it. You
Yeah,
know?
I agree.
If you want the perfect tool to help you with your writing, Grammarly. So for those of you who don't know what Grammarly
I agree. And let's take a break for a minute there, guys, because I want to tell you about the best trading tool on the market, TradeZeller. The reason why trade. And let's get back to the episode. It's interesting because a lot of people don't see that. You know, there are a lot of people. They just, because we're in our industry and they're not in others, they assume it's just trading. Like just trading is like that. But I'm sure, you know, e-commerce or copywriting, like every industry has that to some degree, always.
I'm pretty sure people in the Etsy group on Facebook fighting about their quilts. Like I'm more than sure you have that everywhere, and you just have to find a way to navigate it. You go to school and you learn from teachers that don't like other teachers. You have students there that do not like other students, but you're still in that environment and you're learning with everybody else. What's your job in that kind of environment? Is it to go around and be social justice warrior to everybody and say, hey, yeah, we all need to get along, or is it to learn whatever it is you're there to learn, and then grow in whatever capacity you can to now turn back and address that? You know, so people don't understand that, you know, you got to focus on what the goal is and get there by any means necessary. And then you can take the opportunity to stop and do whatever it is after. Preserve yourself, get to where you need to go, and then do for others. You know, so that's kind of what the industry is like.
No, I love that. I love that. Especially that analogy. It was really good. And you know, in terms of right now, there's a big thing going on. I know. Do you trade futures, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So like, obviously, you've seen the CFD prop firm space, absolute mess. Still great opportunities, but you know, it's going through a lot over the last recent months. But it seems like futures is unfortunately starting to see some of the chaos. There's a lot more futures firms coming, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it just seems like potentially they won't learn from the CFD space and will have to go through their own reckoning, if you will. But what are your thoughts in terms of prop versus personal? Like, is it better off? Like, obviously the end goal is personal, right? But in futures, is it still similar to FX? Like, you know, you're probably better off in the beginning going with props to finance your personal.
So the problem with prop versus personal, I was all for prop before when I started understanding the inner workings of it. But then when I really understood the business model of it and you know, the influence that one person, whether it's a CEO or whether, you know, it's a particular moderator in the group or whoever it is, the social media staff, one person can have, you know, so much power to influence work that a person, you know, a trader has done. You know, like hearing things like, you know, we're going to deny your payout, shut down your account, and refund you your fees because of a conversation that was, you know, some disagreement within a Discord or something like that. You can disagree with your broker all day long on the phone about whatever it is that occurred. Your broker is not going to tell you, close up your account, get out of here, go find another brokerage to, you know, so with the prop space, there was just a lot of abuse of power that began to happen, you know, when some of these individuals started to rise to some sort of notoriety in the space. And I think there's a lot of maturity that's coming through the space now. The only thing with that is, I mean, it's someone that, you know, in terms of live, I don't have somebody combing through my trades to say whether I'm able to pay myself or not. You know, like yesterday, I had a 7K day, and I didn't have to think about the consistency rule on the 7K day. I didn't have to think about whether I, you know, submitted one contract and I thought it was 10, and then I added 9 more in underneath while it was in drawdown, and now that counts as averaging down, or you know, or being limited to the amount of contracts that I desire to trade. I can trade freely under my own conditions, and if that's the system that I, pay myself with. But it's a breath of fresh air. You're not worrying mid trade
Yeah.
about potentially violating some rule or agreement
I
while
think it
you're
adds
in
a
the
layer
trade.
of anxiety to the trading
Yes,
experience.
100%, 100%. And then for them to, any of these firms to enforce it on, one person who may not have a following, but the person who does have a following, they, let it slide with, or it's just too much going on. There's no regulation, and I do think that the main goal should be for people to look to move to their own live account, their own personal account. When I started to be able to pay bills with little trades that I was taking, trade on US 30, I make $100 on an unregulated broker, and I'd withdraw that $100 and pay my $70 T-Mobile bill. That stuff felt empowering to me. But thinking about having to meet 9 more days and having to trade in these different styles with different kinds of price action, there's no way you can trade one way in the many different phases of price action. So somewhere along the lines, you may deviate from your normal trading. You may deviate from your normal execution style. You may deviate from your normal risk because of how the move played out.
Yeah.
There are things that you're going to potentially change or adjust in your trading. And the fact that you can be trading prop and still learning to refine yourself as a trader, and it could be a penalty to you. It's a little too much for me, So in terms of personal funds versus prop, I would 100% tell people the goal is to have your personal funds and be skilled enough to grow and live out of your personal account. I've taken a very small account, $600. I've taken that with $700 to $89,000.
Right.
$700 to $89,000, and it's all over Twitter. People can go, look at my Twitter, look at the entries. Everything was live, and obviously because it was on an unregulated broker, people turned their nose up, with it. But it had leverage, so I can start with a small amount, and because I had the skill to use the leverage wisely, now I'm able to build it into something large within a short period of time. You can do that. You don't need a very large amount of capital to start with. There's this dream in prop space or in prop land that you need to be making $5,000 a day, and you do not need to be making $5,000 a day. Look at your expenses divided by the amount of trading days. Right? The total of your expenses per month divided by the amount of trading days, that's what you need to be making per day if you want to be realistic about it. So showing up and making $2,000 in the morning, why am I coming back in the evening session to be a philanthropist and give it all back? What am I doing? I'm holding it for the market maker in the morning and I'm giving it right back to them in the evening. It doesn't make sense. There is no job right now that I can apply to, that many people watching here can apply to. There is no job right now that will say, hey, in 5 minutes, deliver something to us, 5 minutes of work, right? And you get $1,000. Some people are up $1,000 in 5 minutes and still try to risk more. When did we get to that place where we think that $1,000 in a day was not enough? I used to work a job where I used to make $1,000 in a week, and that was after 12 hours of work or something like that per day. And I sacrificed a lot for that job. So it really all comes down to priorities. But prop is a great tool to be able to shore up some funds with the small amount that you do have.
Yeah.
If you have the skill to make money, pull some out, from a payout, and then fund your own account. You don't have to be a slave to prop. You don't have to constantly promote prop and tell people they need to do prop and only prop. And it's a great way to scale.
Yeah.
But when regulation comes in, the entire environment is going to be changed. The bad actors that we have in this space now, they won't be there anymore. So if that's not going to be the case later, look, you see how they're cutting down on gambling, and they're saying, oh, this is gambling, and now that is gambling, and now that is gambling, and now that is gambling. And these are some basic things that people may do on their personal account that they're saying is gambling. And schemers to what? Dollar cost average down? There's a lot of people that do that. You know, calling them gamblers and schemers for doing that, that's, you know, a bit of a stretch, you know. So they have a lot of influence in the prop space, but I think people need to, you know, sort of turn their eyes back to the goal.
Yeah.
What the goal actually is, and that's to go live with your own account, and that's to be able to live out of your own account and trade your own way that you have already refined. There's some people that's taken prop firm challenges that should not even be trying to trade. My demo account is 1.5 million in the negative with barely any swap fees, and I was only trading 1 to 5 contracts. I don't think I went anything above 10. I think I went to 10 one time. That's a lot. That's $10 per point that I was using to, you know, trade demo for however long that I did, until I could trust myself to take those same demo trades now in a live account. You know, so I went through all of my losses on demo. It's foolish. It's entirely foolish to think that you should consider experimenting with the money that you've worked so hard for by just trying to figure out if you could actually do this trading thing or not. No, use paper money. Demo trading is the same trading as live trading. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody loves to, you know, say, like you said, limiting beliefs. For me, I traded my demo account the way I now trade my live account. So there was a certain kind of, you know, system or setup that I had while I was trading demo that I would always trade live with. And because I treated my demo account the same way that I treated my live account, or I treated my live account the same way I treated my demo account, whichever one it was, I was still able to maintain that same consistency. I'm not taking, here's all my rules met with this trade, but the next 3 trades, they didn't meet not even 2 of the bullet points in the rules. And I took them. For what? That's not, you know, it doesn't make sense, but you need that discipline, and, you know, that sort of shows up later on in the journey for people.
Well, I loved what you said there. I really did, in terms of taking your expenses and dividing it by 20, or the trading days, because it's a very powerful exercise. So simple, right? But it's so powerful. I remember I used to do these spreadsheets for some traders, and as part of the spreadsheet, I would get them to list out their expenses, like the total monthly expenses, and then it would automatically calculate from there into a separate sheet that would show them how much funding they would need based to cover their expenses. So how much you could set the percentage return. So you could say, let's say 5%. Let's just say 5% for the month. It would then tell you, okay, this is how much funding you would need minus. If it was just funding, then it would add another one in terms of like paying tax, profit split, and then that's really it. So profit split, tax, and then it would tell you. For the majority of people, the amount they would need is like 30,000, 40,000, right? But everyone assumes, and don't get me wrong, we get it. Like, you want to make good money, you want to get 7 figures, etc. But everyone assumes that they need to have hundreds of thousands at least to be full time. But the reality is, if people did the numbers to just cover their life, like, don't get me wrong, I know that the goal isn't to just make the same money you make now or to cover your expenses, right? But that's your first goal, really. That's the first goal, is to make sure you're making the same money as your expenses. Doesn't mean you quit your job or anything, but that's the first goal. But as you just said, I think the exercise is beautiful, because it's like, as you say, most people are looking to make 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 a day. But the reality is,
Yeah.
If you do that calculation, you realize, okay, that can be a goal,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
let's make the 200 first or 50
Yeah.
first, or whatever it
Yeah.
may be. And I hope people do the exercise, because I think it's eye-opening, because we just assume what we need to make. We
Yeah.
just assume, and a lot of the time we're assuming off our goal.
Yeah.
So our goal is to have the car and the watch and the travel. So of course we think we need to make 2-3 grand a day.
Yeah.
But reality is, like, if you do the calculation of, okay, what do I need to make to cover me now?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably way less than people think. So I love that. And then you mentioned about the demo trading, right? And then taking these losses there and building the skill set, etc., and then transitioning to live.
Yeah.
What was it like, though? Obviously, doing all that work on demo, the psychology is not involved.
Yeah.
So when you did transition to live, did anything change? Did you have to go through a bit more of a learning process just to sort of sync what you were doing on demo to now having the psychology involved?
So yes, there was definitely a learning process that I will say I went through. Even after I became profitable, there was still more of a learning process I was going through during that time. But coming off of demo and going to live, there was one thing that kept me in a straight line. I kept saying that I can only trade what it is that I'm successful with in back testing. So if this was trend line trades and I needed to wait for a trend line break, and I saw in back testing, and this is how I traded on oil, I saw in back testing that there was a trend line break in the morning and there was a trend line break in the evening. All I had to do was be present for one of those breaks during one of those times in a New York session, and I'll be able to pay myself. So that's sort of the route that I went in terms of having that discipline, having that the strategy that I needed to use to be able to trade with. And I made it, I was making $1,000 a day on oil. Yeah, it was a little over leveraging as well, but I was doing that with the same discipline of just taking the same setup, taking the same trade that I saw in back testing, the same thing that I saw over and over and over again. I would only trust that. So I said to myself, I only have one shot at this. I have $600 left. The kids, food is running out. I'm injured. I have no money coming in. This is my last shot. This is my silver bullet, Like, it needs to work out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So if I'm going to trust myself to go live, then I need to honor that trust that I'm giving to myself, that my family's giving to myself. I need to honor that and obey that with discipline. So that means that the trades that I do take, they can't be just trades that I'm looking at the chart and I'm like, let me just go ahead and take this. And it needs to be things that are executed based on my trade plan, because honoring my trade plan is honoring my family. It was honoring the fact that I knew that I put us in a hole due to wasting time, procrastinating, spending so much of my life just enjoying myself and not really, prioritizing things. There's so much that I could say about my past that, I was a 100% time waster. I wasted so much of my youth just doing foolishness, not even learning a particular skill that I needed to learn. Now that I have that, I'm against wasting time, because I see how much idle time actually, destroys people in the long run. Time is the most important thing in the world, and I'm not talking about time in terms of ICT trading and kill zones, because I need to put that